Hi, you're on the Reddit Confessions channel. Let me tell you what it feels like to sit at your own birthday party and realize your wife is waiting for you to leave the room so she can laugh harder with someone else. She clinked her glass a little too hard when the cake came out. That was the first sign. The second, she didn't sit next to me. She sat next to him. And the third, she didn't even flinch when he whispered something that made her cover her mouth to hide her smile. Everyone thought I was quiet because I was overwhelmed by the attention. The truth? I was trying to breathe without falling apart in front of a room full of people I barely liked. My birthday party wasn't huge, just 12 people in our house. She insisted on organizing it. "It's time you celebrated yourself for once," she'd said. She bought a string of cheap fairy lights, played soft jazz in the background, and made sure every guest had a wine glass in hand. What she didn't tell me was that she'd also invited someone I didn't know, someone who looked far too comfortable walking into our kitchen, someone who knew where we kept the wine opener, someone who already knew where we kept the good wine, too, the one we never opened unless it was an anniversary. His name was Branson. No one else found it strange that she greeted him with a hug that lingered. No one found it odd that she called him B, like a nickname they'd been using for years. No one questioned why he was carving the roast chicken instead of me. My name wasn't even on the cake. She said the bakery had messed it up, but I noticed she didn't look surprised when she opened the box. When I stood to make a toast, thanking everyone for coming, I caught her staring at him with that look I used to think was meant only for me. She didn't even pretend to look back. After the guests left, I started collecting the empty glasses. She was still smiling, still flushed from too much wine and whatever he had whispered in her ear. I asked her straight out, "Is there something I should know about you and Branson?" She rolled her eyes like I'd asked if the earth was flat. "You're being dramatic, Linford." Dramatic? My wife of 12 years called me dramatic for noticing the way she leaned into another man all night, for watching her fingers trail the rim of her wine glass every time he laughed, for realizing I was nothing more than a decoration at my own celebration. I went upstairs. I didn't say another word. No yelling, no accusations, no threats. Just silence. And that silence was louder than any scream I could have mustered. It was around 2:30 a.m. when I heard the knock. Not loud, just enough to let me know she was on the other side of the bedroom door. "Linford?" Her voice cracked. "Are you awake?" I didn't answer. She knocked again, then whispered, "Please don't leave me." Funny how she only said it after the party ended, after the wine ran out, after he was gone, after she shattered everything. I didn't open the door that night. I couldn't. I lay there with the covers pulled up to my chin, staring at the faint glow coming from the hallway beneath the door, frozen in a silence that wasn't peaceful. It was paralyzing. Her footsteps eventually padded away. I heard the sound of the wine bottle uncorking again. She was still drinking. I imagined her sitting in the kitchen, swirling the last of the wine she bought for him, not for me, not for my birthday. The next morning, she acted like nothing happened. She was already dressed when I came downstairs, hair tied up, sunglasses on, phone in hand, talking loudly to someone about some nonsense project at work. When she noticed me, she flashed a quick smile, the kind you give to a barista, not your husband. "There's leftover cake in the fridge," she said, walking past me like I was air. I stood in the kitchen, looking at the cake box with "Happy Birthday" scribbled in sloppy white icing. No name, not even Curtis, let alone Linford, just cake. I opened it, stared at the half-smashed mess, and closed it again. That's when I saw it, his wine glass still on the counter, lip-marked and half full. He didn't even bother finishing it. I sat down and finally did what I had been putting off. I opened her phone. She always left it on the charger by the microwave. I had never gone through her messages in 12 years of marriage, but the night before changed everything. My hands were shaking, fingertips damp, but I did it anyway. I unlocked it using the passcode I helped her pick out 4 years ago, our anniversary date. And there they were. Messages from Branson, not one or two, hundreds. Late-night texts, photos, videos, memes only couples send each other. Some of them dated months back. I saw the name B saved in her contacts, not as Branson, but as Bell Pepper. A name I once called her when we were first dating because she couldn't cook to save her life. My chest tightened so hard I nearly dropped the phone. I didn't need to see every message. Just one line burned itself into my brain. "I'll tell him soon. I promise. He deserves better than lies, anyway. Tell me what? That I'm the backup? The placeholder? The emotional punching bag until she found someone with straighter teeth and a louder laugh? She came back into the kitchen while I was still holding the phone. Her eyes widened for a second, just a flicker. Then she tried to play it cool. "Were you snooping?" she asked. Not, "I can explain." Not, "Let me talk." Just accusation. I asked her directly, voice flat, defeated, how long it had been going on. She leaned against the counter and said nothing. No denial. No apologies. Just that slow, awful shrug that said more than words ever could. When I turned to leave the room, she grabbed my arm. I didn't pull away. I didn't yell. I just stood there. And then she said, "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." I looked her in the eye and whispered, "You meant for everything that happened last night. Don't lie about that too." Her grip loosened, and she stood there, barefoot, silent, staring at the floor like a child caught cheating on a test. But the worst part wasn't the betrayal. It was realizing how rehearsed her guilt looked, like she had been preparing this moment for weeks. Then she said something I'll never forget. "Please don't leave. I can't lose you. Not like this." Like this was the problem. Not what she did, not what she allowed to unfold while I blew out a candle on a cake that didn't even say my name. I walked past her. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't slam a door. I just walked to the guest room, closed it gently, and cried into the pillow that still smelled like detergent and lavender. Because the truth was, I didn't know what to do next. And that was the most terrifying part of all. I stayed in the guest room for 3 nights. It wasn't just the betrayal that kept me in there. It was the suffocating, heavy silence that settled between us like wet cement. Every hour dragged. I couldn't eat, couldn't read. I'd lie on the stiff mattress staring at the ceiling fan, spinning like it had answers I couldn't find. I heard her moving around the house during the day, but she didn't knock again, not until the 4th morning. I was brushing my teeth in the hallway bathroom when she appeared in the doorway like a ghost. Her hair was messy, eyes puffy, and she held a mug of coffee like a peace offering she didn't believe in. "I made breakfast," she said softly, avoiding my eyes. "You should eat something." I stared at her for a moment, then said, "Are you still talking to him?" That question split the air between us. She didn't flinch, didn't deny it. She just looked at the floor and quietly said, "I told him it's over." Last night her words didn't land the way I think she hoped they would. If she expected some kind of relief to wash over me, she was wrong. All I felt was anger that she needed me to find out before ending it, that she had to be caught red-handed to finally put out a fire she lit months ago. I walked past her into the kitchen. On the table were 2 plates of scrambled eggs, toast, and a sliced avocado. She had lit a candle in the center of the table, like we were playing house again. It looked staged, like an apology scene in a low-budget movie. I sat down anyway. She sat across from me, silent, watching every bite I took like it was a test. "I don't know what to do with this," I finally said. She blinked. "With what?" "With the fact that you were planning to keep seeing him while sleeping next to me. That you let him touch you while I was in the room. That you let me thank you for the party, while the whole thing was a smokescreen." Her jaw tightened. "I didn't plan that. It just spiraled," I laughed bitterly. "You don't accidentally invite a man you're cheating with to your husband's birthday dinner. That's not spiraling. That's choreography." She winced like the word hurt. Maybe it did. Maybe it was the first time I said something that cut deeper than her rehearsed guilt could deflect. Then she did something unexpected. She pulled out her phone, placed it face up on the table, and said, "Check it. There's nothing from him anymore." I didn't touch it. I didn't need to. I just stared at the screen, wondering how many times she had looked at it while I was asleep beside her. How many nights she whispered good night to both of us, me in bed and him through her screen. That day was quiet. We didn't fight. We didn't cry. We just existed in the same space, like polite strangers who accidentally booked the same Airbnb. At one point, I caught her watching me from the doorway while I folded laundry, like she was looking at a version of me she wasn't sure how to reach anymore. Later that evening, she asked if we could go for a walk. I almost said no, but something in me, maybe foolishness, maybe masochism, agreed. We walked through the neighborhood without saying much, the cool breeze whispering through the leaves like it was trying to make up for what she couldn't say. Finally, she stopped near the old community garden where we once planted tomatoes together the first summer we moved in. "I don't know who I've become," she whispered. I didn't answer. She looked at me, eyes red, voice shaking. "I didn't do this because I don't love you. I think I did it because I forgot how to." That hit me harder than I expected. Not because it explained anything, but because it made me realize she wasn't just cheating on me. She was cheating on the version of herself she used to be. And I had no idea how long ago that person died. We stood there under the fading light, two people holding the ruins of something they once thought was unbreakable. And for the first time since the party, I didn't feel angry. I felt profoundly, devastatingly lost. That night after our walk, I didn't go back to the guest room, but I didn't sleep in our bedroom either. I sat on the living room couch with the TV on mute, watching flickering images of a nature documentary I wasn't even following. Dina had gone upstairs, quietly, like she wasn't sure if she was allowed to. I heard the bedroom door close, not slam, just click softly, like a lid sealing a memory I wasn't ready to revisit. Around midnight, I opened my laptop. I wasn't checking emails. I was searching flights, anywhere. I didn't even pack. I just wanted to know that I could leave, that the world was still there outside the four walls where my marriage was dying in slow motion. I don't know what I expected to feel. Relief? Clarity? Instead, it felt like I was watching someone else's life fall apart from the outside. How did we get here? How did a birthday, a day that was supposed to celebrate existence, become the moment I questioned everything I'd built with this woman? I had given her years of quiet loyalty, the kind that doesn't ask for attention or praise. I never needed to be the man who swept her off her feet. I just wanted to be the one who held them steady. And she gave that up. For Branson. The next morning, I was still on the couch when I heard her come down the stairs. She paused at the bottom like she was waiting to see if I'd speak first. I didn't. She walked past me into the kitchen and made 2 cups of coffee. One black, mine. One with oat milk and cinnamon, hers. She brought them over, placed mine on the coffee table, and sat down on the far end of the couch like we were 2 coworkers forced into a shared Uber. It was awkward, stiff, foreign. "I canceled my gym membership," she said out of nowhere. I looked at her. "What?" "I only signed up so I had an excuse to see him." "That's where we met, remember? I thought cutting it out would help." It didn't land the way she hoped. The confession felt cheap, like someone cleaning up a mess only after being told it was there. I wanted to say something cruel, something to make her feel how deep this cut had gone. But what came out instead was, "Did you love him?" She didn't answer right away. That pause, God, that pause. It stretched for an eternity. "I thought I did," she said finally, looking at her coffee instead of me. "But no, I think I just liked who I got to be around him. Like some upgraded version of myself who wasn't tired or boring or invisible." Invisible. That word stung more than anything else, because I realized I'd been feeling the same way in our marriage for over a year. But unlike her, I never searched for someone else to fill the space. I just shrank to fit it. I stopped bringing her flowers because she used to leave them in the sink. I stopped asking her to dance in the kitchen because she'd pull away. I stopped sending texts during the day because the replies came hours later, short and flat. So I stopped trying. I made myself small. And she noticed, just not in the way I needed her to. That day we barely spoke. She worked from home in the upstairs office. I sat at the kitchen table doing nothing, literally nothing, for hours. I didn't cry, I didn't yell, I just floated, like grief had become my new air. That evening, she cooked. Chicken and rice, something simple. She didn't ask if I wanted any, just made 2 plates and left mine on the table. We ate in silence, the clink of forks louder than any apology she could offer. After dinner, I was about to retreat back to the couch when she stopped me. "I want to show you something," she said, her voice low. She led me upstairs, not to the bedroom, but to her office. On the screen was a draft email, unsent, addressed to me, titled, "If I Ever Have the Guts." She stood back and let me read it. It was a confession, raw, honest, terrible. She detailed everything. When it started, how long it lasted, what she thought she was running from. She admitted to gaslighting me, to lying, to enjoying the thrill of being seen again, but hating herself afterward. She wrote about the guilt, the dreams, The moments she'd cry in the shower without me knowing. And worst of all, she wrote that the day before my birthday, she almost didn't invite me to my own party, because it would have been easier than pretending. I didn't say a word when I finished reading. I walked out of the room, and she didn't follow. I spent that night driving. I didn't pack a bag. I didn't leave a note. I just grabbed my keys and left. Somewhere along the highway, I turned off my phone. I wasn't running away, not really. I just needed to remember what it felt like to be in control of my own direction. The roads were empty, the kind of quiet that feels like a temporary freedom. My hands gripped the wheel harder than necessary. Every song that came on the radio somehow sounded like it was mocking me. I must have passed 5 gas stations and 3 empty diners before I finally pulled into the parking lot of a 24-hour laundromat just to breathe. I sat in that dim fluorescent light, watching strangers fold their lives into bags. Some people looked tired, others looked alone. Everyone seemed to be carrying something, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like the only one sinking. I opened my phone again around 3:12 a.m. There were 3 missed calls from Dana, 1 voicemail, no text. The voicemail was quiet at first. I had to turn the volume up just to hear her breathing. Then, her voice came through, small and cracked. I understand if you don't come back, but I just needed to say it out loud. I was cruel to you, Lynn. I let something ugly grow inside me, and I watered it with every lie I told. I'm not asking you to forgive me. Just, if you're somewhere safe, please stay safe. That's all. I didn't cry. I wish I had. I just felt heavier. Not like sadness, but like my body was slowly turning to concrete, piece by piece. I stayed in that laundromat until dawn. I didn't want to go home, but I didn't have anywhere else to go either. I had friends, sure, but none I could show up to at 6 a.m. and say, "Hey, my wife emotionally hollowed me out. Mind if I crash on your couch for a month?" By the time I pulled back into the driveway, the sun was just breaking through the trees. I sat in the car for nearly 20 minutes before going inside. When I opened the door, Dina was asleep on the couch, still in yesterday's clothes. A blanket wrapped tightly around her shoulders like she was trying to hold herself together. For a moment, I just stood there watching her. It felt surreal, that this woman who broke me was curled up like a child, like someone too tired to be strong anymore. She woke up a few minutes later, startled. I expected her to start talking right away, but she didn't. She just sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes, looking more human than I'd seen her in weeks. She asked if I was hungry. I wasn't. She asked if I was okay. I lied and said yes. She nodded like she knew it wasn't true, but accepted it anyway. Then she said she wanted to talk, but only if I was ready to listen. Not to defend herself, not to rewrite the story, just to lay it out. I didn't answer. I simply sat down in the chair across from her, arms folded, waiting. She told me everything. The messages, the secret meetups. How she looked for signs from me, that I still saw her, still wanted her. And when those signs didn't come fast enough, she let Branson fill the void. She said she liked the attention, yes, but it wasn't just that. She liked who she became when she wasn't with me. Less tired, more vibrant, more interesting. And that scared her, because it made her believe our life had somehow drained her instead of fulfilling her. Then she said something that caught me off guard. I didn't just betray you. I betrayed the version of myself who promised to never become this person. I don't even like her. I sat there for what felt like a full minute without saying a word. And then, for some reason, I asked her one question I never thought I'd ask. Why did you invite him to the party? She didn't hesitate. Because I thought you wouldn't notice. I don't know what hurt more, the arrogance of the assumption or the truth behind it. That somewhere along the way, I had become so invisible to her that she believed I'd be blind to the collapse happening in plain sight. That she thought she could sit him beside her at our table, serve him food from our kitchen, and I'd just keep smiling. That was the moment something inside me shifted. I realized I had been so focused on the betrayal that I hadn't asked myself the real question. Not do I forgive her, but do I even recognize her anymore? She wasn't crying now. She was just watching me, like someone who's already prepared for the verdict. But I didn't give her one. I stood up, walked past her, and went into our bedroom. The door closed quietly behind me. I needed time. I needed air. And for the first time in a long time, I needed to stop asking if she wanted me and start asking if I still wanted her. I didn't speak to her for 2 days. We lived in the same house, ate from the same fridge, moved past each other in the hallway, but never once did we exchange more than a glance. I wasn't punishing her, even though I probably should have been. I just couldn't bring myself to be in the same emotional space as her. Not when every breath she took seemed so casual, so unaffected, like she'd already cried all her tears and now it was my turn to bleed dry. I couldn't keep doing that, playing the role of the silent wounded man while she got to quietly heal. It felt backwards. It felt wrong. But more than anything, it felt like I was slowly slipping into a version of myself I didn't recognize anymore. On the third morning, I got dressed early and left without telling her where I was going. I drove to a park just outside town where no one goes unless they're walking their dog or trying to run away from themselves. I sat at a bench near the pond where the geese are always louder than they should be and pulled out my phone. I typed out a message to my sister, someone I hadn't talked to about any of this yet, and I deleted it. Then I typed one to my friend Darren, someone who always had blunt advice, and deleted that too. I didn't want advice. I wanted someone to tell me what I felt was real, that I wasn't overreacting, that it was okay to feel like my heart had been dismantled piece by piece in the very house I had spent years building with her. That's when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Branson. I don't know how he got my number. Maybe Dina gave it to him when they were still close. Maybe he found it in some twisted corner of our shared past. But the message was short, and it made my stomach turn cold. I didn't expect it to go this far. I never wanted to ruin anything. I thought she was unhappy, and you didn't notice. There it was again. That same arrogance masked as sincerity. That same assumption that I had somehow deserved this because I wasn't enough. That if I had just been more exciting, more present, more something, she wouldn't have drifted into his arms like a leaf caught in the wind. I wanted to respond. I wanted to tell him exactly what I thought of him. But I didn't. I deleted the message, blocked the number, and then just sat there, watching the ripples on the pond reflect a version of me that didn't look like me at all. When I got home, Dina was sitting at the kitchen table with a letter in front of her. It wasn't folded. It wasn't sealed. She had written my name on the top of the page in shaky handwriting. When I walked past her, she didn't move. She just nodded toward the letter like it would speak louder than she ever could. I took it and went upstairs. I sat on our bed, my side, because even now that distinction still mattered. And I started reading. It wasn't an apology letter, not exactly. It was more like a surrender. She wrote about how she wasn't going to beg anymore, about how the version of our marriage she had destroyed didn't deserve to be patched together with empty promises. She admitted she missed me, that she missed us, but she also admitted that she didn't know how to make it right, that maybe she never would. There was a line near the end that stuck with me long after I finished. Sometimes, the worst thing we can do to someone we love is not hate them. It's forget to see them. I sat with that letter in my hands, the weight of it somehow heavier than all the silence we'd endured over the past week, and still, I didn't know what to do. Stay? Go? Start over somewhere else? Force a new beginning with someone who had already thrown the ending in my face? That night, we had our first real conversation in days. I asked her point blank if she still loved him. She said no. I asked if she still loved me. She hesitated, then whispered, "I want to." I don't know if that was enough, but it wasn't nothing. So I told her the truth. I didn't trust her, not even a little, and I didn't know when or if I ever would again. She didn't cry, she didn't argue. She just nodded and said, "Then maybe we start there." I don't know what's worse, when someone betrays you and lies about it, or when they tell the truth and you realize the damage isn't just in the past. It's in every quiet moment that follows, like a shadow that never leaves the room. There's something cruel about silence when you're trying to fix something that's already broken. It isn't peaceful or reflective, it's full of weight. Like walking across a frozen lake, listening for cracks you can't see. That's what the house felt like for the next few days. Not a home, just a structure filled with two people tiptoeing around the wreckage of a once happy marriage. I worked from the dining room while she stayed locked in the office. We barely looked at each other. There were no fights, no flare-ups, just the eerie absence of warmth. It's strange how quickly two people can become strangers when they run out of things to hide or deny. Then, out of nowhere, her phone buzzed, loud, obnoxious, and she didn't move to pick it up. We were both in the kitchen, each pretending to care about our own little tasks. She was slicing apples. I was staring at a sink full of dishes, neither of us really present. The sound of that message felt like a slap, a reminder that her world had once existed behind my back and that pieces of it might still be out there. She didn't glance at the screen. She just let it buzz again. I asked, without even turning around, "Are you going to answer that?" She sighed. "No, it's probably Branson." I froze. "Why would he still be messaging you?" She shrugged like it didn't matter. "He said he didn't get closure, that he still has feelings." I turned toward her slowly. "And you're just letting him text you?" "No," she said, finally picking up the phone. "I've ignored everyone. I haven't answered. I don't plan to. He thinks if he keeps reaching out, I'll change my mind. But I'm not changing my mind. I'm just not ready to block him either." That line hit me harder than I expected. Not ready to block him. As if part of her was still holding on to a version of him, of them, in case this whole reconciliation failed. Like I was on probation in my own marriage, and he was sitting quietly on the bench, warming up just in case. "I can't compete with someone who doesn't care if they break things," I said, "and I'm not going to." She put the knife down. "You're not competing with anyone. I told you, I ended it. But you didn't close the door." "I slammed it," she said, louder than I'd heard her in days. "You just want me to burn the house down, too." I stared at her, not sure if I was more hurt by her defensiveness or the fact that she truly didn't understand how fragile everything still was. I told her I needed space, not emotionally, but physically. I couldn't keep walking into rooms and wondering who she used to text in them. So I packed a bag, not a dramatic one, just a duffel with some clothes and my laptop, and told her I'd be staying at a friend's for a few days. She didn't stop me. She didn't cry. She just asked, "When will you be back?" "I don't know," I said, standing at the door. "I'll know when I don't feel like a backup plan anymore." And I meant it. I stayed with Darren, my blunt friend who didn't ask questions but offered a cold beer and an extra pillow. For the first 2 nights, I barely slept. Not because I missed her, but because I felt untethered, like I'd stepped out of my life and wasn't sure if I even wanted to return. Darren didn't pry. He just handed me the remote and let me sit in silence. It was exactly what I needed. Space, air, time to remember that I still existed outside of her orbit. On the 3rd night, she emailed me. Not a text, not a call, an actual email. Like we were 2 professionals negotiating the end of a contract. The subject line read, "Closure." The message itself was simple. She had blocked Branson. She attached a screenshot to prove it, and then she wrote a single line I'll never forget. "If this ends, it won't be because I didn't fight to be the woman you once trusted." I didn't respond right away. I stared at the screen for nearly an hour, rereading that one sentence like it held a secret code. It didn't undo what she did. It didn't erase the damage. But for the first time since everything fell apart, it didn't sound like a script. It sounded like her. The real her. I sat back on the couch, stared at the ceiling, and realized something I hadn't been ready to admit before. Maybe I didn't need her to be perfect again. Maybe I just needed her to be honest. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough to make me consider coming home. I returned home on a Thursday evening, just as the sun was beginning to fall behind the rooftops. The neighborhood was quiet, like it always was at that hour, but somehow it all felt unfamiliar. Even the way our front door creaked when I opened it sounded different, like the house itself wasn't sure whether to welcome me back or brace for more damage. I didn't knock. I still had my key. And even though I felt like a guest in my own life, I wanted to believe that somewhere inside these walls, there was still a version of us worth saving. Dina was in the kitchen when I walked in, barefoot, hair tied up, wearing one of those oversized college sweatshirts that made her look like she hadn't slept in days, but comfortable in a way that wasn't performative. There were no candles, no wine, no attempt at staging some grand reconciliation scene. Just her, standing over a pot of soup, stirring slowly. She turned and looked at me, and for a moment, we didn't say anything. We just stared at each other, neither of us smiling, but both of us searching for something in the other's face. I finally broke the silence with a single word. "I read your email." She nodded, then whispered, "I meant it." "I know." That was it. No apologies, no tears. Just 2 people who had hurt each other deeply. But somehow, we're still standing in the same kitchen, willing to try. I dropped my bag near the stairs and sat down at the table. She ladled soup into a bowl and placed it in front of me without a word. It wasn't grand, it wasn't romantic, but it felt like the first real act of love in weeks. We ate in silence for a while before I asked, "Do you think we'll ever get back to what we were?" She shook her head gently. "I don't want what we were. I want something better, something we build from here, brick by brick." And in that moment, I believed her. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the birthday night, or the messages, or the weight of the silence that nearly buried us both. But it gave us something to build on: honesty. For the first time in months, I didn't feel like I was chasing the ghost of who she used to be. I saw her for who she was now: flawed, broken, remorseful. And I realized I still loved her. Not because of who she had been, but because she was finally fighting for who she could be. That night, we talked until after midnight, about everything. About nothing. About where it all went wrong and where it might finally go right. We didn't come up with a plan. We didn't draw lines or set rules. We just agreed on one thing: no more hiding, no more silence. The next morning, I woke up in our bed, not as a man trying to forgive the past, but as someone finally ready to live in the present. Thank you for following this journey on Reddit Confessions. If you've ever been through something like this, or witnessed a relationship fall apart and somehow rebuild itself, we want to hear about it. What was the turning point? What changed? Drop your story in the comments and share a moment from your own life when everything seemed lost but turned around. We'd love to read it. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and stay with us for more real, raw stories every week.